Hey everyone, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about your COVID passport. Do you have a COVID passport? If not, then how are you going to travel around the globe? Now here's what's going on. This is an actual thing, and this is coming from the Daily Mail out of the UK. Now, coronavirus passports I think are going to be the future here, and this is what's going on. Essentially, coronavirus passport travels are taking place at Heathrow Airport in London this week to test a technology to let people travel the globe without a risk of being quarantined when they land at their destination. Passengers on United Airlines and Cathay Pacific are testing out an app this week called Common Pass, and here's how this is going to work. Basically, this is an app in your phone that is a digital health pass that can hold a certified COVID-19 test to show that somebody has been vaccinated, essentially. So when they travel, they're going to satisfy the government requirements wherever they land. Meaning, when you land, you can show them, I've had a COVID-19 test, I passed, let me in your country without being quarantined. Now, it has been launched by a nonprofit trust called Commons Project Foundation, which is part of the World Economic Forum, in the hope that it will end essentially the delays that flyers have, one, in producing, let's say, tests on paper, often in different languages, which is obviously an issue with the language barrier. I've had that myself traveling to foreign countries where the officials don't speak English when I'm trying to use my passport to get into that country. So this would help in that sense by offering that standardized test right on an app that they could essentially scan. Now, this is obviously in the trial stage, and it's being used on volunteers on flights between London, New York, Hong Kong, and Singapore under all of these government's observations. But this is being seen as a longer-term measure to allow air travel to return almost back to normal, like pre-coronavirus levels. I mean, I remember going through customs, to go to, let's say, a country that is, let's say, friendly with the United States, or other countries where I then have to go through customs on that side and get searched and all of that. This is an attempt in a pandemic to try to get people that essentially have tested positive to be able to do that. Now, the thing is, though, is that it's reliant on governments around the world actually accepting test results from quote-unquote certified laboratories in other countries, and then allowing those with those negative results to enter freely based on that lab in another country. Now, according to Dr. Bradley Perkins, who's the chief medical officer of the Commons Project, and I quote, "Without the ability to trust COVID-19 tests and eventually vaccine records across international borders, many countries will feel compelled to retain full travel bans and mandatory quarantines for as long as the pandemic persists. With trusted individual health data, countries can implement more nuanced health screening requirements for entry." And I think that, interestingly enough, like all things security, we have to extend trust in the middle of a pandemic, and that's obviously an issue. We have many different countries around the globe. This is a global pandemic, and they are battling COVID in many different ways. We've seen herd immunity in places like Sweden, social distancing around the globe to different standards, whether it's the United States or elsewhere. Some countries are simply doing nothing. Just nothing. That has actually been a thing. And some are actually taking a vaccine right now that was pioneered by a Russian lab that we actually have to trust, and on and on and on. Now, I think this speaks ultimately to a need, especially in a global emergency, of a universal standard for testing and verification that should ideally be seen across all verticals that are critical to our survival, like medicine, security, and even cybersecurity. And so when we are creating something along these lines, we need those international bodies like the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and on and on and on to create a standard that says if you use, let's say, one of these 5 tests out of the 8 billion that are out there, and these are the tests that we are going to accept because they have such a low false positive rate, and that has been consistently proven, that if I take a COVID-19 test here in Chicago and it's accepted, as negative, and I'm able to board a plane, fly to Beijing or wherever I'm going, get off the plane, Beijing's going to see my app and say, well, he took a test just before he got on this plane. It was negative. Therefore, we're not going to quarantine you in the airport for 14 days or wherever. Welcome to Beijing or wherever I'm flying. This is what we're talking about here. And I think that this is a rather important thing, but it requires the globe to get on the same page. That is a very difficult thing, obviously, in various countries with various political climates. I'm not just talking about the United States. I'm talking about everywhere on the planet. But I find it interesting because we are trusting not just the lab results, we're also trusting an app called Common Pass that I hope has a good amount of security with it. Because there is nothing, let's say, stopping somebody that has knowledge from potentially breaking in and changing their results, assuming that Common Pass didn't secure their stuff. And I'm not saying they didn't. For all I know, they are locked down very, very heavily, and that would be the goal. I hope they are. And so in this sense, whether it's security, we are extending trust. When I walk into my local retail store and use my credit card, I am extending trust to that retail store to actually safeguard my credit card data per the laws in the United States, which are going to be different than the laws in other countries in terms of this. While they're similar, they're also going to be a little different. And so getting on that common platform, I think, is the first step to allowing global travel to happen when we have results and I can go to a lab that I know is going to be accepted worldwide in the same way a regular passport would be. This is what we're coming to. So go get your passport from whatever country you're in, watching or listening to me in, but make sure you get that coronavirus passport too, especially if you want to land somewhere else outside of your country of origin. I think that's something that's very interesting. This is going to be just the wave of the future, and I think there's a lot of cybersecurity and data security implications based on this because we are then extending trust into a platform that I hope is fully vetted. And so there you go. That is your news of the day. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think the coronavirus passport thing is a good idea, a bad idea, or are we just asking for trouble? And is this going to help the virus spread? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.